Hey everybody, what is going on? It is your boy izlogic.business welcoming you back to the Anarchy Analysis Prediction Series. It's time for groups. As we have finished with the regular split, we say goodbye to two teams in Vitality and Astralis as we head into our best of threes for this split. But before we get into them, let's go over last weekend's results, which, if you can't tell, went very well. Day 1, 4 out of 5. We only dropped the Mad Heretics series. Day 2, 5 out of 5. Just simply sublime. And then day 3, we threw it all away. We threw, and 1 out of 5. And the one we picked up was the Koi Astralis series. And with that, let's get into this weekend's best of threes. Our opening series this weekend is going to be the matchup of the week. XL taking on the Mad Lions. There's a lot to unpack here between these two teams, as a lot of interesting things have happened during this split for both of them. Obviously, this is the first time we're getting to see XL in the current iteration in a best of series, and that is going to make a hell of a difference in terms of the ability to play different things. Now, XL have a lot to play for in this group stage, because unlike Mad, who they're facing, they're not qualified for the season championships, and they want to be going to Montpellier at the end of July. And so, let's be honest here, I've gone with a Mad 2-1, and breaking down the matchups, I think topside is going to be where XL will be dominant and do very well, and I think Odo is probably going to carry XL to a game win, only one game win, and then games 2 and 3 probably are going to be where Mad pick up the victories. And I think we got to look at the bot lane. I think Kazi and Hilly have struggled this split. It's not been their big, they're the main features of Mad. They've kind of been quite quiet. In fact, most of Mad have been very quiet this split. And the roster's not... It doesn't feel like the same run they had earlier in the year. And they realize, obviously, they're qualified for Montpellier already, so they're not having to try as hard. That's one reason, maybe. But you have to think about them. They've got quite a lot of championship points. So relatively speaking, they might be top 4 or 3rd. Actually, they might be they've definitely got a lot of championship points. So they're probably going to be sitting maybe top 3 seed for the season finals. So realistically speaking, they don't really care as to how well they do here in summer. So, yeah, I could understand why Mad might not be that powerful in the best of threes. However, I think XL might come out swinging and possibly could pick up the series win. But my head is saying Mad will just beat them outright so that they can kind of guarantee themselves top 2. And lastly, it's G2, it's Koi in a best of 3. This is the finals from last year, bear in mind, without Trimby. And I think it's best to say how I think it'll go. I think G2 will win 2-0, but I'm not discrediting Koi in any way, shape or form. I said in the previous game that there's an all-pro mid laner in this matchup. And you're probably thinking, Caps is who I say. But then you realize I'm Koi as a 33. and I am a big fan of them. And I'm going to say Larson is my MVP All-Pro, not MVP, All-Pro mid laner. And the reason is, you look at his stats, he's certainly outperforming a lot of mid laners across a myriad of different things. And he's not the most talked about mid laner in terms of performances. If you think about mid laners in the LEC, you think Caps, Humanoid, Niski. You don't necessarily go to Larson as a top performer, but this split's kind of been one where he's finding himself and playing different things. How many times have you thought, oh, he's an Azir main, he's just gonna play control mages? This split, he's played probably more Tristana games than we've ever seen from him through his entire career. In fact, I'm gonna pull up his LoL Pro stats here, just to prove a point, because it's interesting to me how well he's actually done. Here we go. This split alone, he's only played, well, he's played certainly a lot of control mages, but he's played LeBlanc, one of his picks that he gets such a high win rate on that he doesn't play that much. He's played 2 Tristana games, more than I've ever seen from him, and it's got such a high KDA. He's played a lot of different things. He played Azir once, a pick that he was spamming throughout 2019 onwards. So here, this year, the fact that he's shown such a diverse pool. I'm looking at all of his pool this year. Tristana's his 3rd most picked. It's insane. I'm honestly surprised how diverse his pool has become. He didn't even play it last year, so that tells you something. But I'm hyping over Koi, even though I predicted 2-0 to G2. You can kind of see where my mindset is. I wanted to talk about Larson as a player before I covered why I think G2 will win. The reason is, Koi have lost past 14 minutes into a game. Like, they get such a good advantage, they build on it, like through to about 15-14 minute mark, and then they just forget how to play League. G2 as a team have snowballed games like this, where they've managed to get the lead to a stupidly high amount and continued to throw pressure at the opponents and beat them. It's been how dominant they've played the map. And Yike, huge factor as to why that happened. And I think he's going to absolutely gap Malrang. So I think jungle gap's going to be a huge. And I think that bot lane, Koi haven't looked the strongest. But it wasn't until groups and playoffs last year, or last split and the previous split, Koi stepped up. Koi are a groups / playoffs team. You have to remember that. So, coming into this one, who knows, it probably will be 2-1 or 2-0 to G2, but Koi could in theory upset them. Just miraculously. Anyway, enough rambling about how much of a Koi fanboy I am. Oh god, I'm meant to be impartial. I don't even have my Rogue jersey in the background. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me today. If you enjoyed these predictions, leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new, if you want to. I'm not going to do the bit because I have one more note to say. There's games on Monday. It's don't know who versus don't know who. It might be the winners of each game or the losers facing off against one another. When that happens, you'll get predictions live on my Twitter. Hopefully, straight after the games on Sunday. So, thank you very much for joining me. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new and if you want to. I'm doing it again. Why am I doing the outro again? But see you guys then. Peace out. Our second day of group sees Heretics versus BDS kicking off. Oh boy. I'm intrigued by this one. As if we looked at the success of these two rosters this year, considering this is Heretics' first season in the LEC, they've certainly looked very good. You kind of have to forget about spring for a little of their run, but winter and summer, they've been very good. And here, with VTO in this roster, they've been a cut above a lot of teams. VTO would be my all-pro mid laner for this split if it weren't for another player who we'll get to talk about soon. And here, I think you've got to think about how these two teams match up. I think Nuke's been kind of quiet this split in comparison to last. He's not had the same sort of impact. And VTO is the opposite. He's been a lot more standout. He's certainly stepping up in this roster. And while the top side is kind of a death machine for the Heretics, and not in a good way, they've certainly got a style that works for them, I think is the best way to word it. And say, while they're not the flashiest of teams, they've got seniority in terms of players that have experience in the league and understand what they need to do to win. And it's certainly showcasing a lot of strength. As for BDS, this split has felt like a lot of teams have barely scraped in. BDS is one of them, in my opinion. I don't think that they've been good at all this year. And I think that they've kind of, not this year, I mean this split, they've not been overly aggressive or that style we saw in spring that got them to the finals. And long story short, unless they turn it up here and now during groups, during playoffs, if they make it, they might not make it to the season finals. And I'm not sure if they're locked. In fact, I'm not sure whom is actually locked at all right now. I'm assuming BDS aren't locked, because Vitality can still make it in. So anyone can essentially make it into season finals. I'm actually going to check just to make sure that I am not wrong, because I really don't want to be wrong. So the only two teams that are locked are Mad and G2, according to LOL Fandom. So as a whole, anyone can make it, and that's a huge thing that needs to be considered, because if anyone can still technically make it, because there's 4 slots, and if G2 wins the whole damn thing, or Mad, the 4 slots are decided on championship points. BDS might not have enough to make it. In fact, I'm not sure how many they have. Let's see. Okay, they're third. Never mind. Ignore what I'm saying. They're definitely making it in. There's literally... So, Koi and BDS are on enough points, basically, to qualify. Nothing needs to be said. They're basically qualified for season finals. Anyway, I think that this series probably will be Heretics' favor 2-1. I think that their knowledge of the game, the abilities they have to play more than one style will be showcased here, and that will probably get them the win. So yeah. The reason I give him BDS one game, probably should explain that. BDS have the skill. They've shown it all year long. I think that what they'll end up doing is surprising Heretics with a sort of draft that's revolved more around Adam and punishing Evie, and getting him so far forward, maybe with an Olaf or a Darius, just at a point that he's unkillable and will just carry BDS through a fight. Or he goes level 3, roam down to mid, unlock nuke, get him advantages, and just play the game from there. I think it's going to revolve around that top lane quite heavily. And Jankos' ability to protect Abby will be probably criticized by the fans. So yeah, that's how I think that one will go. Our second matchup this weekend is Fnatic taking on SK. Fnatic are also a team that haven't been here in a best of series. This split out, well, in this iteration. And you have to look at how well they've been this split. And we're going to break down each matchup lane by lane. Let's discuss the top side. To start off, Irrelevant and Oscarin have kind of been the standout performers in that top lane all year split. Irrelevant has been a shining feature of SK in a similar sort of tone that Odoamne is to XL. As for Oscarin, he's kind of stepped up. He's starting to feel more welcome in the LEC than how he did last split, where he was a bit shaky at first, but he found a performance, like a good performance as a player. I think as a whole, Fnatic probably are going to win this series 2-0. And that's solely because I need to look at the mid lane. You need to just take into effect stats between roles, and as Fnatic have top 2, top 3 across pretty much all roles. Noah and Trimby have been phenomenal. Mid lane, you've had a very high performing humanoid who's just been kind of innovating this split. He introduced us to the static Shiv LeBlanc that has become very prevalent in terms of play. And as such, I think how Fnatic have been this split is just a breath of fresh air for the roster. It's like they had a slump for the past few years, slowly falling lower and lower down the totem pole, and then this split they've just straight back to the top and they're performing very well. It's kind of like how TSM are in the LCS, in a sense that they've slumped for a few years, not making it to Worlds since, what? When was it Takeover? When it was Takeover, I remember at that one in the domes. But yeah, essentially Fnatic are looking very good and very strong, and I think that they're just a step above SK. So that's kind of why I've gone for them here as a 2-0 victory. I've not given SK a game. I don't think that they've shown enough strength to get that.